She's a vegetable, Richard. Just sign the damn papers before the lawyer leaves. I heard my mother's voice through a thick, suffocating fog, but I couldn't even twitch a finger to prove she was lying. While I lay in that ICU bed, trapped in a body that wouldn't wake up, my parents weren't praying for a miracle. They were holding a garage sale for my entire life. They sold my home, liquidated my firm, and even auctioned off the one heirloom my grandmother told them they could never touch. They thought I was a ghost, a memory they could cash in. They thought they were being clever, but they didn't know about the dead man switch hidden in the reinforced wall of my kitchen. I wasn't just recovering in that hospital, I was recording. And when my eyes finally opened, the first thing I did wasn't reach for my mother's hand. I reached for my phone, and I hit delete on their entire future. The first thing you notice when you're trapped in a coma isn't the silence, it's the noise. It's the constant, rhythmic hiss of the ventilator, the sterile squeak of nurses' shoes, and the whispered conversations of people who think you've already left the room. My name is Juniper Thorne, and for 22 days, I was a silent witness to my own social execution. A severe anaphylactic reaction had sent my system into a total shutdown, leaving me physically paralyzed but mentally hyper-aware. My parents, Arthur and Madeline, moved into my life like scavengers. I could hear them in my hospital room, their voices dripping with a fake, performative grief for the nurses, only to sharpen into icy greed the moment the door clicked shut. They spoke about my estate as if it were a carcass. They talked about the burden of my house, a 3-story craftsman I had spent 5 years of 80-hour weeks to buy outright. They didn't see a daughter fighting for her life, they saw a windfall. When I finally clawed my way back to consciousness, I didn't let them know. I kept my breathing shallow and my eyes closed, playing the role of the vegetable they so desperately wanted me to be. I listened as my father negotiated the sale of my forensic data firm over his cell phone, standing right at the foot of my bed. He was selling my life's work for pennies on the dollar just for a quick payout. My mother was worse. She spent her afternoons on my laptop, resetting my passwords and transferring my savings into trust accounts that she alone controlled. They had gained temporary medical guardianship, a legal tether they were using to garrote my independence. They thought they had erased me. But as a specialist in high-level data recovery, I had spent my career preparing for catastrophic system failures. I had built my life with a back door, and my parents were about to walk right into a digital minefield I'd laid years ago. The day I was discharged, I made sure I looked as broken as possible. I sat in the wheelchair, my head lolling slightly, watching through hooded eyes as my mother put on a masterclass in grieving parent for the hospital staff. She cried into her silk handkerchief, telling the head nurse how difficult it was to sell the family home to cover my mounting medical bills. It was a total lie. My firm had the most comprehensive private insurance in the state. My bills were already zeroed out. They were pocketing the cash from the sale of my house, nearly $1.2 million, and painting me as a tragic charity case. When they drove me to their guest house, they didn't realize I had already accessed my shadow network via a hidden eSIM in my smartwatch. While they were busy toasting their newfound wealth with expensive champagne in the kitchen, I was watching the live feed from the hidden cameras in my old house. The house was empty now, stripped of my furniture and my art, but the buyers, a young couple who looked terrified of the legal urgency my father had manufactured, were already moving in. My parents had told them I was terminal and that the sale had to be final and unencumbered. But they hadn't found the dead zone. Behind the floor-to-ceiling spice rack in the pantry was a 5-inch thick slab of reinforced ballistic steel, disguised by flawless carpentry. It was a room that didn't appear on the original blueprints, a secure vault I'd installed off-record. Inside wasn't just money. Inside was the original ironclad will of my grandmother, Clara Thorne, and a physical ledger of every cent my parents had borrowed and never repaid over the last decade. It also contained the true title to the house, a document that proved my father had forged my signature on the transfer papers while I was still in the ICU. I waited until they launched their Miracle Recovery GoFundMe campaign. My mother posted a video of me waking up for the first time, a staged, heart-wrenching moment where she pretended to be the one who called me back from the brink. They raised another $150,000 in 48 hours from unsuspecting donors. That was the final nail. I didn't confront them at dinner. I didn't scream at them for selling my grandmother's 1920s Paycheck Philippe watch. I simply waited for the dead of night, walked out of their guest house, and took an Uber to my old address. I met the buyer, a man named Elias, at 2 a.m. I didn't show him a lawyer's letter, I showed him the biometric scanner hidden under the third shelf of the pantry. When the steel door hissed open, revealing a room filled with high-definition servers and physical evidence, the color drained from his face. Your parents told me this house was a distressed estate, he whispered. I looked him dead in the eye. My parents sold you a crime scene, Elias. But if you help me, you won't be the victim of it. The explosion happened on a Tuesday morning. I didn't just sue them, I deplatformed their souls. I released a point-by-point rebuttal to my mother's viral video, featuring the hospital's own insurance logs proving the medical debt was a fabrication. I included the hidden camera footage of them laughing about liquidation while I lay in my coma. But the real poison pill was my grandmother's will. Clara Thorne had been a brilliant, cynical woman who knew exactly what her son was. She had inserted a clawback clause. If any beneficiary attempted to gain control of her estate through fraud or during the medical incapacity of another heir, they would be immediately and irrevocably disinherited. By trying to steal my $1.2 million house, they had triggered a forfeiture of their own $4 million trust. The court date was a massacre. My mother tried to use her grief-stricken voice, but the judge had already seen the footage of her raiding my jewelry box while humming a show tune. My father tried to claim financial necessity, but my forensic accountant presented the SWIFT codes for the offshore account he'd opened the day after my surgery. They didn't just lose the house, they were ordered to pay treble damages for fraud and were slapped with a criminal indictment for the exploitation of a vulnerable adult. As we walked out of the courtroom, my father grabbed my arm, his face a mask of panicked rage. Juniper, we're your parents. You're going to leave us with nothing. I leaned in, my voice as cold as the ICU air. I learned from the best, Dad. You taught me that approval is transactional. And right now, your account is overdrawn. I walked away, leaving them to the silence they thought they had trapped me in. I kept my grandmother's watch, I kept my house, and most importantly, I kept the door to my life locked, and they no longer had the key. For more stories where the silence finally speaks, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We don't just tell stories, we deliver justice.